I'm Danny Thomas. I have been given the distinct honor of introducing one of the most unusual films of our time. Unusual because it tells the true story of a woman who, after 100 years, is now accepted as one of the most powerful figures of American history. Her contribution to our welfare as a nation has never really been presented as vividly or as dramatically as it is in this film. I am indeed proud to bring you this true story of one woman and how she used the years God gave her to make the world a better place to live in.
Where does a story begin? Perhaps this one began on that bleak day in the winter of 1841.
All right, you can all keep quiet. I said you can all keep quiet. Mind your tongues and your language. This lady's come here to talk to you for your own good, for the word of God and the like. So you'll give her the respect as is her due.
Why, most of them have no cloaks.
I wouldn't worry about that, ma'am. They're used to it.
Used to this cold?
There's plenty of warmth in what you're going to talk to them about.
There may be warmth in it, but I think a few shawls would also be acceptable.
They're tough. That's putting it mildly.
Yes, Mr. Brown. Good morning to all of you. I'm told that what I'm about to say has warmth in it. I only pray that it helps you. Really helps.
Hurry up. Get right back to your work. You too, Becky. Go on, Emily. I said go on, Emily.
Please.
Please nothing. You heard what I said.
Mr. Brown. I'm saying please too, Mr. Brown. Let her speak.
She ain't got nothing to say.
Thank you for talking so nicely to us. Please come back.
Who are you?
She's Emily Partridge. Now go along, Emily, and finish up your grub, and I'll lock you in again.
Wait. You say your name. You don't look a day over 18. What did you do?
She's mad.
They do say I'm mad.
I don't understand this at all.
Thank you again for coming here, ma'am. Bye, ma'am.
Miss Dix, I really think you should go along now.
Why is that poor young girl in jail?
Where else should she be, ma'am? I told you she's mad.
But she's not a criminal.
Miss Dix, when a woman is committed by the state...
Committed to a prison for being ill?
Ill? Emily ain't ill. She's just a loony like some of the others.
I want to see where she sleeps.
I don't think I would advise that...
Mr. Nichols is right, ma'am. The one she's in with ain't a fit sight for a lady's eyes.
But she's fit for that poor girl to share a room with. Is that it? I insist on seeing her room.
Well, if you insist, but don't blame me.
This isn't a room. It's a cage.
It has to be, ma'am. You should see her when she gets violent.
And that poor girl who shares this place, is she violent too?
Not yet, but she will be.
You mean next year or the year after? Of course she will be.
That's right, ma'am. I see you know loonies.
I don't know them. But I do know that anyone confined in a place like this is bound to get worse.
Don't go near her. She'll scream.
She isn't screaming, but she is shivering.
That's just put on, ma'am. Loonies don't feel the cold like you and me. Well, that's what people say.
What people? Emily, do you feel the cold?
I try not to, ma'am.
That was the beginning. Dorothea Lynde Dix had seen something that had stirred her very deeply. Now she turned to a man already famous for his work on behalf of suffering humanity, Dr. Samuel Gridley Howe.
Your account of the treatment of the insane in the East Cambridge jail has moved me deeply.
Thank you, Dr. Howe.
So, what do you intend to do about it?
Well, Dr. Howe,
What, Miss Dix?
Well, you've done such wonderful work, such glorious work.
That you were hoping to shift the responsibility of these poor souls onto my shoulders. Well, that's one way to salve your own conscience.
I apologize, Dr. Howe. I'm taking too much of your time.
No, don't go. Miss Dix, I know about the school you ran at your grandmother's house at Orange Court. An excellent little school, admirably conducted.
You're very kind.
Not kind at all. I also know about your other school in the old carriage house, conducted out of the goodness of your heart for the destitute children of this city.
That was a long time ago, Dr. Howe.
And finally, of course, I know about your illness and how you were forced to give up teaching. Quite reasonably, you felt that your whole life was behind you. You felt it ever since.
I think I see what you mean. Since my illness forces me to retire from active life, I should not bother others with matters that disturb me. Yes, your meaning's very clear.
Except that you've misconstrued it.
I think not.
Tell me, Miss Dix, why did you go to the East Cambridge jail?
I went there for a very simple reason. I was asked to bring what spiritual help I could to the women criminals who were there. But I found that there were some unfortunate women who needed much more help than I could give them. Because they were not criminals, Dr. Howe. In fact, their only crime is sickness of the mind. And for this, their punishment is imprisonment in conditions of utter degradation and misery. Of course, you think this is not my business.
I don't think that at all. In fact, if it isn't your business, whose business is it?
I don't quite follow you.
Tell me something else, please. When you left that jail, just what was in your mind?
Well, I thought, why has nobody ever done anything about things like this?
And?
And I thought perhaps I could find somebody to help them. Somebody stronger and better than myself.
But somebody better and stronger than you, Miss Dix, may never come along. This is your battle, your own, and you have to win it.
Dr. Howe, I've been told that I have only a year to live.
A year can be a lifetime if one fills it with meaning. And so, go on, Dorothea Lynde Dix. Go out and fight for what you believe should be. And if during that fight, you should stop to think of your own illness, ask yourself this: are you as ill as those people you'll be fighting for?
My dear Miss Dix, these lunatic people were committed by due course of law.
But Judge Barton, can we, in conscience, allow innocent people to be committed as criminals and condemned to endless misery? I have a letter here, written by Mr. Charles Sumner after he visited the East Cambridge jail with Dr. Howe. I would like permission to read 2 sentences. It was a punishment in heathen days to tie the living to the dead. Hardly less horrid was this scene at Cambridge.
Really, Miss Dix?
The living tied to the dead, Judge. Please go and see for yourself.
Judge Barton, with your permission, sir.
Yes, Mr. Harper.
Please, madam, may I introduce myself? I'm Eli Harper of the Board of Governors of East Cambridge Jail. May I say, madam, that the treatment of lunatic paupers at East Cambridge is no different to the treatment they receive at any other of the jails throughout Massachusetts. And so, madam, if you insist on digging and ferreting and poking your nose in where it isn't wanted, may I suggest you do so farther afield? Nobody will thank you for it.
Some might thank me.
Who, madam?
The victims.
Victims? What a word, sir.
Yes, Mr. Harper. But I hardly think the matter can rest there. I am a busy man. This lady has asked very little. I believe it to be my duty to visit East Cambridge Jail.
Judge Barton.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Mr. Harper. You say East Cambridge is no worse than other institutions throughout Massachusetts and throughout the Union, you said. You are right. I should dig deeper and farther afield.
That was the beginning of the endless journeying, gathering the material for a report which was to shake the complacency of the entire state.
Men of Massachusetts, I beg, I implore, I demand pity and protection for these our outraged, suffering fellow beings. Gentlemen, I commit to you this sacred cause.
This woman is just a scandal monger.
Does she want to set these loonies free?
Does she crave for personal notoriety?
The people won't stand for higher taxes to keep these lunatics in luxury. We've got to kill this bill.
Dr. Howe, I was beginning to think you would never come back. What happened?
Well, your bill was submitted, asking for laws to prohibit the confinement of the insane in public jails.
But what happened? What was the vote of the House? Did they choose that people should continue to live like animals?
No, Miss Dix. The House chose humanity.
That was the first victory, Massachusetts. The bill for more humane treatment had been passed, and never again would the prisons be allowed to torture the insane and the allegedly insane. But what about the suffering individuals beyond the borders of this one state? The journeying went on, and at a town called Little Compton in Rhode Island.
Oh, well, come in, ma'am. Here, they're right in here.
There's no fire. Why is there never any fire?
Folks can't afford to give them food and fire, ma'am.
If you can't afford it, why do you have them at all?
Well, it's our rights, ma'am. Well, we bid the lowest, didn't we?
Bid the lowest.
Well, you know, ma'am, it's like an auction. The state farms them out to whoever will keep them for the least money. We bid 50 cents a month less than anybody in Little Compton.
I see. I was told there were 4 men. I see only 3.
Oh, Simmons, of course, he's down the yard. I'll show you. Mind the steps, ma'am. They're real slippery.
Why, there are icicles in here.
Oh, sure. But Abram Simmons never freezes.
Never freezes.
That's him. Don't go near him, ma'am. He'll kill you. Ma'am, he's chained. He has to be. He might get away.
Through those iron doors.
Watch him.
Oh. Abraham Simmons. Somehow I'll get you out of here. And you'll have heat and light and the comfort God wants every human being to have. I promise.
That's queer. It's almost like he knows what you're saying.
I pray he does. I pray he understands and believes me. Hospitals, Dr. Howe. We've got to have hospitals. Comfort and heat and treatment for all these poor people.
It's a large order, Miss Dix. How far have you got?
Practically nowhere. If we could have just one hospital exclusively for the insane, a hospital to set an example for others, in Providence, why not? A hospital to show the way.
And to shelter poor Simmons.
Simmons? Yes, poor Simmons has become a sort of symbol for me.
Yes.
We've got to have a hospital for the insane, Dr. Howe. Surely somebody will see it my way.
Well, there's always Cyrus Butler.
Cyrus, why do you smile?
It's no use. Butler's as rich as Croesus, but he's never given a penny to anybody in his whole life, and he never will.
Cyrus Butler. In Providence.
Miss Dix, you're looking very pale. I believe you should rest.
No. Not until Abraham Simmons has heat and light and a hospital built for his welfare and for the welfare of all those other poor people with broken minds.
Yes, Miss Dix. Well, I've listened with a lot of patience, in spite of the fact that I have matters of great concern that should be receiving my attention. Well, it may interest you to know that I've come to a conclusion.
What is it, Mr. Butler?
That this is none of my business whatsoever. Very seasonable weather we're having, aren't we?
Yes, Mr. Butler. It is no business of yours. Well, as a matter of fact, I don't suppose it's any business of mine either.
Huh?
Very well. You've come to a conclusion, so have I. Let us talk about the weather, Mr. Butler, and let poor Simmons freeze.
But I thought, pardon me, but from what you said, I thought Simmons meant a great deal in your life.
He did, until I talked with you and saw the wisdom of putting one's own comfort first. I'm told you'll die worth $4 million. You made that money all yourself, and you'll take it all to the grave with you. You should be very proud, Mr. Butler.
And you're going to give up this crusade for a mental hospital?
Yes, thanks to you. You've shown me the light. And you're right. It is none of our business. Let us shut our eyes and, by all means, our ears to the cries and screams of the helpless and miserable.
Yes, Miss Dix, except that I wouldn't want to, by anything I've said, increase people's misery. I mean, it's a shame that my words should deter you from the wonderful work that you're doing.
What's wonderful about it?
Well, from what I've heard.
What have you heard? That the lost have found their way? That the desperate have found hope? How people talk.
Yes, Miss Dix, how people talk indeed. How you talk. So, how much do you want?
How much will you give?
How people talk indeed. You're a deviously clever woman.
How much will you give?
For a hospital devoted exclusively to the insane, I'll give $40,000, Miss Dix.
Thus, the Butler Hospital for the Insane came into being at Providence, Rhode Island. But it wasn't quite the end of the Rhode Island story.
Yes, ma'am. Will you take me to Abraham Simmons? I want to tell him that there'll be light and comfort in a warm hospital. I've kept my...
Simmons died of the cold, ma'am.
Oh.
Simmons didn't die.
Say that again. I need to hear it.
He suffered and he died, but not in vain. Because through him, you achieved your objective.
Not all of it. Not yet.
You said you'd settle for one hospital as an example. Others can take it from here.
When the need is so great everywhere else.
You can drive yourself too far and too fast.
Not too fast. Abraham Simmons died.
Yes. But he served a great purpose. I pray to God he knows it.
He knows it.
So the years slipped by and the work went on, the endless journeying, into the Old South, into the New West. And slowly, one by one, came the hospitals. A dream coming true, but never fast enough.
Well, you've got your hospitals, more than you ever dreamed of. You've earned a real rest. Please take it.
No, I can't.
But, Miss Dix...
I'm going to Washington.
But, my dear lady, they tell me that you've traveled over 60,000 miles, that you've visited at least 9,000 mentally sick cases. Figures like that stagger me.
I'll stagger you further. hundreds of thousands of dollars are needed. And then hundreds of thousands of dollars more. And I simply have to have that money.
But how will you get it?
There's a way. Land.
Land?
Yes. Everywhere across our country, everybody is scrambling for grants of federal land. Well, I'm going to scramble a little myself. I'm going to ask Congress for a grant of 5 million acres.
What in the world will you do with this land?
Sell it. Yes, sell it. The proceeds from that sale will provide a perpetual fund for the care of the insane.
You do stagger me.
I staggered myself when I thought of it. But it isn't such a bad thought, is it?
No.
So it was that Dorothea Lynde Dix came to Washington, the year 1848. And there she begged, and there she fought for 6 long years. And then this staggering proposal actually came before Congress.
The request is for 12.5 million acres of land, the sale of which will provide perpetual succor and help for the insane of our country. I ask that you support and pass this splendid woman's bill.
The bill was passed. Dorothea Lynde Dix found the cup of final victory at her lips, only to have it snatched away again.
Unwillingly, I am compelled to resist the deep sympathies of my own heart, but as President of the United States, I must veto this bill as unconstitutional.
Where does the story end? Certainly not with defeat. In any case, it is doubtful if the heart of Dorothea Lynde Dix even knew the meaning of the word. The land bill was behind her, but the future was still ahead, and her greatest achievement of all at Washington, D.C. Dorothea Lynde Dix had written the bill that secured the appropriation and almost single-handed had outlined the plan of operation and found the site for St. Elizabeth's Hospital, the first mental hospital ever established by the federal government. And then the day came when an old lady of 85 sat in the room which she had now made her home at the New Jersey Hospital for the Insane.
You have a visitor, Miss Dix. Mrs. John Clark.
Oh, it's so wonderful to see you, Miss Dix. Well, it's so pleasant of you to say so. I'm afraid my eyes are dim, shall we say. Have we met before?
Oh, yes. And I've watched your great work through the years. I've tried to model my life after yours. Please don't think that impertinent of me.
I consider it a compliment.
Of course, I've never been able to create things as you have. Hospitals after hospital. Here, England, Sweden, and Italy. Didn't you even go to Constantinople?
Yes, that's a very interesting city. Did you go there, dear?
I've never even been out of Massachusetts until now. In fact, until I came here to see you, I've never been more than 50 miles from the East Cambridge jail.
East Cambridge jail? That takes me back. Didn't I go there years ago?
That's where we met. My name is Emily.
Emily? Emily.
I've wanted to thank you years ago for what you did for me, but I've never had the chance until now. You've always been so busy, one great fight after another, and you always won.
Oh, no, not always. We had one sad defeat in Washington, the land bill.
Even that wasn't a defeat. Well, just look at the hospitals now throughout the country and you'll know you won.
Well, we like to think so. Indeed, we like to think so.
She's asleep, Mrs. Clark.
One woman. She helped change the face of the world. If only all of us could be just 100th part as useful as she has been.
Useful? Well, I did my little bit. It wasn't very much, but it grew, and it blossomed. And I thank God for it. Others can do as much and more. You know, there's an old saying, for a web begun, God supplies the thread. As a kind friend once said to me, just try. Just try, and soon you will find another web has begun.
In this film, Dorothea Lynde Dix has spoken for herself. Despite her own handicap, she single-handedly started a trend long overdue to champion the cause of the mentally ill. When she started, there were practically no hospitals for those who suffered from mental illness. And when she died in 1887, a total of 127 such hospitals had been erected. And all because one woman, fired with the love of God, dared to follow the two words, just try, that Dr. Samuel Gridley Howe addressed to her when she thought she had only 1 year to live. This film has been presented by the Christophers. It's my privilege now to present to you the founder of this great movement, Father James Keller.
Thank you, Danny. Friends, this film exemplifies very well the power of one person for good. And the aim of the Christophers is to remind you, whoever you are, of the power that God has given you to do good, to make the world a bit the better for your being in it. In the Christophers, we have no organization, no memberships, no meetings, no dues. We provide free literature once a month to anyone wishing it. Our Christopher News Notes, which now go to over 1 million people free of charge. You may have them without cost by sending a postcard to the Christophers, New York, 17, New York. God bless you.